Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nate. I wanted to do a very little wrap up for what I read in January. However, I was looking and most of the books I read in January, I actually read in the first 2 weeks. I was doing a vlog challenge for those 2 weeks and most of them I read in that time period. And so most of them I've spoken about quite a bit in that vlog. I'm going to link that vlog up here where I do go into, I guess, a bit of detail about my thoughts and stuff throughout the books as I'm reading them throughout the 2 weeks. So I'm going to briefly touch on those books, but try not to go into too much detail because I do sometimes have a tendency to ramble. But yes, we will start off, and I always like to go kind of chronologically. I might change that up in the future. I might like rank them by like highest rated to lowest rated or whatnot, but for this month of January, I will just go through and tell you about what I read in order. First up, we have Heartstopper 3 and 4. I enjoyed these volumes. This was a 3.5. No, this was a 3 and this was a 3.5. This series is just quite average for me. I enjoy it. It's an easy read, but it's nothing that I think is spectacular. I felt this was a bit more like pared down than the TV show. I'd watched season 2 before reading on with this, and so some of what happens in this one is in season 2. It doesn't go into quite as much detail as season 2 does, which I think I preferred because I think it took away a bit of the focus from Nick and Charlie in the series, which I think they can do more in a TV show because they have like more screen time and stuff, but it didn't as much in this. And then this kind of was just complete new content for me, and yeah, I mentioned in that video I liked some elements of it. I didn't like some others, but for the most part, this is a fine series. I've got the 5th volume out from my library, and I am going to continue, at least finish the series. That's pretty much all I have to say about that because I did speak about it quite a bit in my reading vlog. And then I have Castle in the Air by Diane Wynne Jones. This is the second book in the Houseman and Castle series. I'm not quite sure if it has a name, and again, I spoke about it in that video, but I did really end up liking this book. I gave it a 3.5, I think, in the end. I think the beginning was quite slow. The first 80 to 100 pages, the pace was quite slow. There was stuff happening, but it felt slow, but I think it picked up after that and it went on a bit of a journey, and I ended up really enjoying it. I thought the writing style was very simple and basic and quite easy to get into, and I really liked our main character and his kind of journey. I really liked the way that it unfolded Houseman and Castle into this story. And yeah, overall, it was nothing really deep, nothing really like heavy. It was quite whimsical and just quite a fun time. So yeah, I ended up quite enjoying this. I am going to continue on this series. I think there's one more book in the series and I will finish it at some point. I then read Dowery of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this I liked more at the time. I think now that I've removed myself from it, I don't necessarily know if I liked it as much. I think I rated a 3.5, which I would probably still stand that rating. It was a fine read. I think I just found it now that I'm thinking about it. It was a bit boring. Not a ton of stuff was happening throughout it, and it just felt sometimes like it was quite a kind of stream of consciousness the way it was written. It was kind of written in journal letter format, and so it was just kind of our protagonist just like writing about stuff. It was a fine book. I think for people more into like literary fiction with maybe wanting something a bit different, not than just like a regular literary fiction, might quite enjoy it. It did have elements of gruesomeness, goriness, which I'd like from like vampire books. I like vampire books to be a bit more like have some elements of gore in them, or like my paranormal books, I guess. But yeah, overall, it was just fine. When I finished it, one of my thoughts was that I'm quite glad I only paid 99p for it because I had it as an ebook, which I guess that's quite telling on my overall thoughts of that book. After that, I had The Kingdom Over the Sea. This is by Zora Nabi, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. It is a middle grade. It is quite whimsical. There is a adventure going on with our main character basically kind of figuring out who she is, and a kind of sultan that has let himself been overtaken. Magic's been ruled out of this kingdom, and our main character, who has magic, yep. And why do I have to remember that? Of course she has magic. Our main character who has magic is kind of going on this journey to figure out who she is. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It's going to have a sequel, I think, this year, and I'm going to be reading it and carrying on with the series. I thought it was just quite light-hearted enough, but there were stakes enough, and I thought our main character was interesting as well as other characters. Again, I spoke about it in that reading vlog, so you can watch that video if you would like some more thoughts on it. But overall, I did enjoy this, and I think it was a fun, middle grade, adventurous, yeah. And then the last one, also included in that reading vlog, was I finished off A Storm of Swords Part 1. I enjoyed the series. I had read half of it before, so this was just finishing off the book. But yeah, I really like the series. This was a 4-star for me. I think most of them in this book series are probably going to be. I don't know if one will ever quite reach a 5-star for me, just because I do think sometimes they are a bit unnecessarily long with some of the intricate details, but I do think the world building is fantastic. I do think the lore and the kind of like religious aspects and just like the world aspects that are built into this book series is really, really good and really just so imaginative, and it feels like a real world. I spoke about this again more in that video, so if you wanted further thoughts, go there. But I mean, this was a good book. I'm going to carry on with the series. It was an enjoyable read. So then, my first book of what was not included in that vlog, Haikyu, volume 24. Nope, Haikyu, volume 25. This is kind of what happens in season 4. It's kind of a bit in a transitional phase between going from like the national element, which is like the last big game they had, to kind of moving towards training for the nationals. So it's not really in the middle of any kind of big matches, but it's more to do with, I think, it's focusing a bit more now on like the characters developing and their games and stuff like that. But yeah, good, enjoyable stuff. I have a few more volumes that I can read of this before I'm up to date with the anime, but I want to finish the series with the anime. Apparently the movie is supposed to be coming out this month, February. I haven't heard anything about it after that, so we shall see as this year progresses, because I don't really want to finish this in manga format, but to be honest, if it goes on too much longer, I probably will. I love this series. It's one of my favourite manga series. And then for the last two things that I finished this month, because I have read, I think, 2 or 3 other books that I have not finished yet, still now in the middle of February, so I won't be including them, obviously, but I had finished 2 more things in January. The first one was Circe by Madeline Miller. I ended up really liking this. I gave it a 4-star. I did listen to it as an audiobook, and I thought the audiobook narrator really, I think, probably contributed to my enjoyment of it. It was just, I thought it was so good. It was such a good, I just thought it was so good. I honestly I don't know a ton about this kind of mythology, and so a lot of this was all new stuff to me. I thought it was really interesting. I'm interested to know how much the author puts into it in terms of like how many of the interactions between Circe and other mythical characters are real, that had happened, that are in myths and legends, and she's just kind of expanding it a bit, or are made up. For instance, Circe in this interacts a bit with Hermes. Do they actually? Is that an actual thing? Has, like, in mythology, is there descriptions of that? I think my sister did say there was a video somewhere that like links where she's done an interview kind of talking about that. So probably I'm going to watch that, because I do find that quite interesting about like how much basically like creative freedom did she take to this project. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed this. I really liked the writing style. I liked Circe as our main character, and the journey it went on. Yeah, I think I could see myself wanting to reread this in the future, so I potentially am going to buy a physical copy. I know Waterstones have like the gorgeous hardcover red ones, and I do own Song of Achilles, but I haven't actually read it yet. But I'm very looking forward now to reading that, because I just had a really good time with this book. Yeah, I don't know if I can really flesh out my feelings about it now. I really need to film these wrap-ups a bit closer to when I'm reading the books, because I feel like my mind goes a bit blank, but I had a really good time with it. I think it surprised me. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did end up enjoying it. I thought I was going to find it a bit more of a slog, because it is a bit more, although I guess it's a mythical retelling, a mythology retelling, it's a bit more on the like literary fiction-y side, I think, as opposed to being more of like a fantasy written one, if that makes sense. It obviously is fantasy because of the stuff that happens in it, but like that's kind of where I'm leaning in, like how it was written. But I just thought it was really good, and I think probably having the audiobook did help with that. It helped the pacing of it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And that was for a book club that me and my sisters do. And then the last thing that I actually finished in the month was a completely random book, but I needed a book for the prompt for buzzword for there. And I had one book, but I wasn't going to read it. And so I went on to Everand, which I currently have a subscription for, and I just tapped in there to see what was going on. And then There Were None came up by Agatha Christie. Sorry, that sounds like a mouthful to say. This is my first time ever listening to anything, reading anything by Agatha Christie, and I had such a good time with this book. I really enjoyed it. I read it in like a couple of days. It's not very long. I think the audiobook was something like 6 to 8 hours. I can't remember exactly, but it really wasn't very long. But I thought this was it was just fun. It was just good and entertaining. The audiobook narrator was kind of like, he was quite like posh British guy, and I think it kind of gave me nostalgia-y vibes for like 90s children's shows that are like narrated by these kind of older sounding like very well-spoken English gentleman, and so it kind of gave me that nostalgia, and I think he actually did quite good in like his inflection and accents when changing between characters. And I thought, you know, it had this nice big cast of characters. It defined them well enough that as the story went on, I was able to pick out who they were, because there was quite a big group. And yeah, I didn't guess the mystery. I didn't guess who was the killer. But before the prologue, or before the ending, not prologue, before the epilogue, I was kind of a bit left unsatisfied, because I was kind of like, so who did it? Who did it? Because it never really kind of explained it. And then the closing kind of chapter was the reveal chapter. And then I was kind of like, you know what? I enjoyed that. I liked it. I liked the kind of elements of it. I liked the idea of taking all these people who had done bad things and kind of like punishing them, like a sense of like, you know, this justice happening to them. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll be interested in the future to read more stuff actually from Agatha Christie, because it was just quite like an easy read. I listened to a lot of it while I was doing uni work, so it was something that I was able to, you know, really like just indulging, and it was just a good time. So that was basically everything that I did read for the month in January. Like I said, I'm actually in the middle still of like 2 books, I think, from January. Lessons in Chemistry and Jade City. I still haven't finished that. I'm enjoying both of those. I just haven't finished either of them. So yes, I have quite a bad habit of like starting a lot of books, and then because I play my TBR game, when it comes to the end of the month, I leave them and then go on to the next batch of books, where really I need to be working hard on like finishing the books before the end of the month. I also have the bad habit of starting quite a few books, so that way then a lot of them end up unfinished, instead of if I just stuck to like one book at a time, I would finish them off a bit quicker. I'm not a one book at the time kind of person. I like to have options, and I like to have different genres and stuff. So they're usually not the same genre, but they are usually different. So I wouldn't go down to just having one book at a time. But I do need to really do that because I have like a shelf on my book cart that is like books that I've started. But that's not relevant to this video. This video is my wrap up. And yeah, like I said, this is quite a short one. Link in the card if you want to watch that reading vlog. It's a bit rambly. It's kind of, I'm trying to find like my good niche with reading vlogs between what's too rambly and what's just like enough ramble. That has more of my thoughts in it if you want to check that out. But yeah, so this is very short and sweet. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you again hopefully soon. Bye.